Excellent. So, welcome everyone to this workshop. This is the first eDoer on Open Educational Resource Recommender Workshop. My name is Gábor Kismihók. I'm the head of Learning and Skill Analytics at the TIB Leibniz Information Center for Science and Technology. I'm the head of the Learning and Skill Analytics Research Group, and I'm one of the primary investigators of this exciting project, what we would like to talk about today. And, I can start with presenting our system very quickly. So basically, our point of departure is personalization and how we can personalize learning and the learning process. So probably you all know from experience or from your work that learning is something very personal. And these learning activities are driven by a number of different goals and a number of different contexts where the learners are embedded in. And the big challenge these days, how can we use technology to model this context? How can we use technology? How can we use AI to help and, in a way, amplify the motivation of the learner and help them to walk the learning process towards their goals and objectives? So this is the key question. And this is why we started our activities. And back at the days when we started working on this with Stefan Moll, who is also in the call, we actually had a number of discussions like why people actually want to learn. What is the key motivation? Because again, if motivation is key in learning, then we have to find out what are those elements which make people motivated to learn. And then after all those discussions, we said, maybe we should focus on the labor market. Maybe we should focus on employment, because this is something what is part of our societal activities. Most people like to develop themselves towards jobs and skills which are necessary on the labor market. So for this reason, one of the main objectives of this project, of this eDoer project, is to empower learners who are mastering skills which are relevant to their labor market objectives. Okay, and how to do that? And before again I talk about how to do that, what do we expect from this project? What do we expect in terms of contribution? First, we expect that we contribute to the understanding of proactive learner behavior. And that's why goal setting is an important element of this study, or it's more than a study, of this movement. Then we also want to contribute to develop novel ways to design personalized curricula, and beyond that, personalized content delivery in digital learning environments. And last but not at least, we also want to introduce novel data sets in education, non-educational data sets, which inform curriculum design, learning content delivery, and last but not at least, learning evaluation. So do that. This is the concept what we are following. So in our concept, what is important that the student first, or the learner first, sets his or her own goals towards their learning objectives. And these goals are target some sort of job or skills related to a specific job. And based on this goal setting, we look at the skill requirements. We use labor market data, mostly coming from ESCO, and we are mining vacancy announcements. We mine out the skill elements of vacancies. And based on that, we come up with a list of skill objectives, what the learner can turn into learning objectives. And based on these skill objectives, we are configuring an individualized, personalized pathway, learning how to reach those skills, how to master those skills and master those jobs and be capable to do those jobs. For that, we look at a number of educational curriculums, curriculum structures, and we come up with this pathway. Once we have the pathway, we do learning content delivery. So we look at open educational content, but also we can look at institutional content, and based on the person's objectives and pathway, we recommend content for the learners. And last but not at least, we use learning analytics to evaluate this pathway and give feedback to the learner. Because goal setting, this whole structure is not static. It's a dynamic process, right? So if you set your goals, it doesn't mean that those goals are set in stone. You always have to reflect on your objectives. You always have to reflect on the process you are going through. And based on this reflection, you should modify your goals. And that modification will then obviously have an effect on your process, your learning pathway configuration, and the content we are delivering. So this is the big picture. This is the aim we are moving forward. And we put this concept already into practice. And we call this system eDoer, which is an open, community-based and AI-driven learning platform. What does it mean, open? So basically, everything what we do, we try to make it as open as possible. So the source code is open, the community is open, so everyone is more than welcome to join this effort. The content, what we offer for the learners, that's also open at the moment. So we try to rely on open educational resources, which are a very rich source of information for learners. So far, being relatively neglected for individual learning processes. And we are developing explainable AI to drive the recommendation, to help learners to find their best pathways, learning pathways, and the most suitable learning content. So with this, I would like to show you our system. How does it work? So I go to another tab. Can you still see my?
Yes.
So what I'm going to show here now is basically the eDoer dashboard. So how does it work in real? You have to know that this is an advanced prototype. So it's in a really good shape, but still far away from something what we can offer as a service. Okay, so sometimes you will be able to see bugs, hopefully not today, but if you try it yourself, you may see bugs. But if you see that, please use the feedback button on the platform to provide us feedback so we can fix all those issues. Okay, so what is the pathway and how we generate the pathway? As I said in the very beginning, the first and most important thing is to model the context of the learner and capture the learning objectives of the learner. So how to do that? We have a learner profile, and here the learner can, give name, a birth date. But one very important field, what we need is the location. In this case, in my case, this is Germany and Hanover, because this location is actually super important when it comes to the labor market related skills, because oftentimes these skills are contextualized in the local labor market. Okay, so this is something we need to control for. And once we have this information, then we can look at the goal. So there we ask learners, okay, what is your target job? What do you want to educate yourself for? And here I selected now data scientist, but we already have a number of different jobs in the system. However, if you want to experiment with the system, I recommend to use data scientist jobs because they are worked out very well. So the skills and the content, everything is fully functional. So first the user has to select a target job, then select some sort of industry, in which industry the user wants to, or the learner wants to work as a data scientist. And then based on this information, we come up with a list of skills which are relevant for that location, for that geographical location, for that job, and for that industry. So this is a dynamic field. And so these skills, for instance, we distilled from mining vacancy announcements in the area of data science. And these seem to be the most relevant skills for those people who want to do data science with R. So the user here can click any skills and make them as learning objectives. If he wants to learn some extra skills which are modeled in our system, then it's possible to add those too. I'm not going to do that. And last but not at least, the learners can also set some criteria for his or her learning preferences in terms of educational content, length, level of details, content type, so on and so forth. One important field is the content format. For instance, if the user, the learner likes videos, book chapters, web pages, slides, here the learner can set his or her preferences. So once this data is saved, then basically in the curriculum tab, we will see these skills, these target skills. And if I click on the target skills, here the learner can see all the related topics, what we offer for this skill. So where do these topics coming from? How they end up in our system? So what we do here, and probably Mohammed Reza will talk about this later in his presentation, but we look at the content of educational, open educational resources. And based on the content of these resources, we come up with this structure. So once we have this learning pathway, and next to it, you see the content itself, the content recommendation for a given topic. So in this case, the user already learned 3 content, and he's learning the fourth one, installing packages in R. For this content, we recommend a YouTube video. And if I click on, I'm not going to do that, but if I click on this icon, YouTube icon, then the video will start. If the user doesn't like this video, he or she can change it and give us feedback why this change was necessary. Or the user can also indicate that the learning process is done with this, or the learning of this content is, with this content is done, and he or she wants another another piece of content for the same topic, or ready for the next topic. And then we will ask a small question, a knowledge question about this topic element. And if the answer is correct, then the person can move to the next topic. Good. We also implemented assessments. So on a skill level, people can assess their progress. Basically, these are small exams. They are not really related to the topics, but the question here is how the users can use all the knowledge what they gathered through their process. So they can take exams. They are more complex, more complicated than the ones at the knowledge elements. Also, users can follow up their goals. So here, for instance, these are my current skill targets. But while I'm studying for a skill, it might be possible that I'm also learning other skills. So in the background, we can follow how certain contents contribute to other skills. what is not in target of the learner. Yeah, so this is how the learning process looks like. Basically, what I still would like to show you very quickly before we go into the Q&A is how we can generate more jobs, more skills, more content in the system. There we rely on experts oftentimes. Therefore, we have this interface where experts can enter our system and add content. So for instance, we can add jobs here. How to do that? I click on this button plus, and then I can add a job. I really like beer, so let's see if I find something about beer. Yes, for instance, here's a job, beer sommelier. This is industry in general. And here I can see where all this information is coming from. All this information is coming from ESCO right now. So for this job, I can now select skills, what ESCO already modeled. So let's say maintaining foods, specification, a beer sommelier must know a variety of beers, ingredients of beer production, types of barley. So I can nicely list these skills, and if I save them, then you will see that a new page is created for this job, beer sommelier, and with a number of different skills, what I selected. Okay. So then I can start moving on and further define the skills, but I can also rate those skills, which are the most important skills for this given job. I can add, delete, reorder, edit suggestions as I like. There's a possibility to discuss all these skills and changes. But if I want to move on and I want to further define skills, like let's say variety of beers, I can click on this skill, and then again I get recommendations. And this time we do look at this topic in, I think it's Wikipedia exactly. So on Wikipedia, we look at what Wikipedia says about the variety of beers, and then we can sort of add content to this skill. So if I save it, then from now on, this skill will have these topic elements. So if you remember back in the learning cycle, this is the list of topics what the learner will be able to look at, and so on and so forth. If I click on a beer style, then here I can add educational content. Good. One of the next steps we're going to do is to actually start populating with automatic suggestions this educational content area. And I assume that this function will come relatively soon. Good. So I think this is it in a nutshell. I don't know if any one of you has a question about the system at this stage. Margaret.
Hey, yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation. I was wondering how you make sure that you recommend pieces of high quality, and how is quality defined, and how do you make sure that the pieces of information other, let's say from beginner to advanced or something like this. But especially the question about how do you define, how is quality defined is for me very interesting, because as you know, we are building this open educational resource portal for Lower Saxony. This question of quality is really very relevant to us.
So Reza will talk about these quality issues. So the next presentation will be about quality. But
okay, then I can wait, no problem.
Because indeed, this is a super important question. And oftentimes we will have to guess, we have to predict the quality of educational resources, because indeed we don't want to recommend something which has low quality. And quality has a number of different angles. So technical quality, content quality, metadata quality. Reza will talk about this soon. Thanks. I think Jerzy was next, and then Daniela.
Thank you very much, Gábor. First of all, congratulations. It looks really neat, and you know, impressive work also from the way how it operates and how intuitive it is. I cannot really comment on the learning part. I suppose this is, you know, this is way beyond my field of knowledge. But first question is, this is like a tool that is built for a specific university or a general one? And the second question is, it seemed to me that the skill part is a bit tricky, because the learner seems to be, you know, in charge of deciding which skills are the most important. And in reality, I don't think that they will have the knowledge.
Okay, so first question. It's more aided for continuous education. So basically, we didn't have any specific formal education system in front of us. The way we see this, that this is really a very flexible learning environment where people can take as much as they want. So if you want to learn a single skill with a number of topics which are relevant, fine. If you want to learn like a complete skill set for a job, it's also fine. So we try to make this very flexible. This is one. About the skills, I agree. Creating these skill objectives is a tricky one. But this is not only a service related project, it's also a research project. So what we are trying to do here is doing experimentation on how actually learners can manage to process this information, what we provide them on one hand. On the second one, and this is another presentation comes later, Hassan will talk about this, the Oscar project, what we are running. And in this project, we try to complement AI and these recommendations with experts. So what we want to do is to introduce experts, trainers, teachers in the system who can aid learners to process all the recommendations what we give them. So in case you get a recommendation of 5, 10 skills, you can take this and talk to someone. Talk to a teacher. It's also, if you think about it, it's a different role of a teacher. So in a digital learning environment, doing frontal education, giving a presentation, what I just did, is not as effective as talking to each other, right? So one-on-one mentoring, coaching is important. And we are trying to implement that. We are trying to look how we can implement the automatic recommendations with expert advice. But it's still to come. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long for this. Daniela.
Okay, hello, good morning. First of all, thank you for the presentation. The system is very interesting. I just have one question regarding how do you guarantee the development of a skill versus the acquisition of knowledge? I saw that you have suggestions, as you show, of YouTube videos and other open source resources. My question is this being considered, this basic difference between acquiring knowledge, acquiring content, and actually putting it to practice, especially when you select a video? Do you have actual practice being considered when selecting the content? Or even inside the system itself, I saw you show the assessment part of it. Do you plan to insert any other types of actual practices? Because it is a quite different thing to acquire knowledge and actually put your skills to practice and to say, I'm actually qualified, I have the skills, I have these skills because I developed work on this. So this was my only question, to where the skill actual practice would be. Thank you.
So this is not, the system is not ready for certification. So we can't say at the end of your learning path that you are certified. But what I mentioned in the very beginning, that we try to rely on the motivation of the learner. So, and this is a super important part, because I believe if you're motivated to be a beer sommelier, then you try to do your best to get there. And in our case, assessment is not there to assess you at the very end of the process, but assessment is there to help you to move forward. Okay, so we don't really want to evaluate at the end. It's also, I believe, it's not our work. There are so many certification bodies out there. So if you want to certify your knowledge, you can go to a university or to vocational education, or I don't know. But it's really like what we want is lifting the learners up and help them to move towards careers they want to achieve. And your other point is also quite important, the practical element of the learning, because right now it's more theoretical, you are right. But this is again where the expert-learner interaction will play a role, right? So when we're going to enter or implement this interface where experts or learners can interact, experts and learners can interact on the basis of learner objectives, then I think these practical advices or practice-oriented learning will happen. But again, this is a way how, in my mind, technology and human expertise should complement each other. One last question, because we are running late and I don't want to eat up the time of Reza. Vladimir.
Yes, thank you, Gábor, for very nice and highly useful presentation. And I'm thrilled to see the development of this project. What I would suggest at the beginning, because we went already through the pipeline from the small research idea, and now we are moving towards like full production on the high level data with online job advertisement, and we learned a lot. And the system is always as good as your input data. And what I would suggest is basically really work on the quality, and if you make sure that you can manage expectation, because if you go out with this product, they will just jump on it and try to use it to the extent it's not ready yet. So this is just a bit of backstage information. Try to because now it's nice and everything is interesting. It seems that everything is fine, but what I would suggest is really try to narrow down the scope and look at where are the strengths. Because when I'm looking at tools like this, of course, everyone is using the ICT elements because it's lots of them. But we need to see that most of the people that are out there are basically medium skilled occupations. So I would also, maybe for presentation, I would suggest you look at let's say medium skilled occupation, and if it works there, then it's much better. So really, thumbs up and great job.
So 2 comments. One, this is first and foremost what we do here is research. Okay, so in order to arrive at this point, there was really a significant amount of work was put into developing the algorithms, which are not ready yet. And this is something what you have to keep in mind, that in order to provide these recommendations, you need very, how to say, very well working algorithms in the background. And this is, the state of the art is moving forward rapidly. Jarno will talk about this from the labor market side. So this is a system for researchers to test these algorithms, to try out a number of different things. But parallel to that, I think we also see value of opening it up for the public. So we see how learners actually interact with our system. So also our algorithms can learn and be clever in the past. And I also agree, Vladimir, about your comment on the IT specific jobs. Two examples. So what Hassan will talk about, those are like researcher jobs and completely different skills, transferable skills, what we are trying to model on one hand. On the other hand, 1st of May, we start a project on nursing, where we will try to implement nursing jobs in the system and see how does it work. So these points are well taken and indeed very important.